A beat-up Honda Civic with peeling paint and duct-taped bumpers limps through the most expensive neighborhood in the city. Behind the wheel sits a woman in faded jeans and an old hoodie, looking like she wandered into the wrong zip code by mistake. Two police officers spot her immediately. To them, she's an obvious problem, someone who clearly doesn't belong among the million-dollar mansions and manicured lawns. They pull her over, ready to teach her a lesson about knowing her place. What starts as a routine traffic stop becomes a masterclass in humiliation. The officers mock her car, question her story, and write citation after citation for violations that don't exist. They treat her like a criminal simply because she doesn't look like their idea of someone who belongs in this neighborhood. The woman sits quietly through it all, never raising her voice, never fighting back, never revealing who she really is. She takes their abuse with the kind of patience that comes from having nothing left to prove to anyone. But appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes the most unassuming person in the room holds more power than everyone else combined. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on your door. It walks up quietly, wearing old sneakers and carrying the ability to change your life forever. These officers think they've handled another troublemaker. What they've actually done is set in motion a chain of events that will destroy their careers, devastate their department, and teach an entire city that respect isn't earned through intimidation. The woman they dismissed as worthless is about to remind them that true power often comes in packages you never expect. The clock strikes 11:47 p.m. as a beat-up 1998 Honda Civic putters through Willowbrook Heights, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the city. Paint peeling off the hood, a dented rear bumper held together with duct tape, and a passenger side mirror hanging by a thread. This car looks like it belongs in a junkyard, not cruising past million-dollar mansions. Behind the wheel sits Rebecca Stone, but you would never guess what she's worth by looking at her tonight. Faded jeans with a small hole in the knee, an oversized gray hoodie, and sneakers that have seen better days. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, driving with the calm confidence of someone who has nothing to prove to anyone. What's she doing here? Simple. Every month, Rebecca takes these late-night drives to deliver care packages to struggling families. Tonight, she just finished dropping off groceries, winter coats, and gift cards to 3 families who have no idea who their anonymous benefactor really is. This is how she stays grounded, how she remembers where real value comes from. But to anyone watching, she looks completely out of place. 2 police cruisers idle at the corner of Maple and Pine, their occupants scanning the quiet streets for anything unusual. Officer Tony Martinez, 35, leans back in the driver's seat, his badge polished and his attitude even shinier. Next to him, Officer Brad Coleman, 28, scrolls through his phone, both men counting down the minutes until their shift ends. Hold up, Martinez straightens, his eyes locked on the Honda limping past them. You seeing this piece of junk? Coleman looks up, squinting at the taillights disappearing around the corner. What's a car like that doing in Willowbrook? These people drive BMWs and Teslas. Exactly what I'm thinking. Martinez starts the engine. Someone's either lost, up to no good, or both. The second cruiser follows as they pull out, red and blue lights painting the expensive houses in flashing colors. Rebecca glances in her rearview mirror and lets out a quiet sigh. She knows this routine. Pull over, be polite, answer their questions, and hope they let her go without too much hassle. She signals and stops under a street lamp, hands visible on the steering wheel before the officers even approach. Years of late-night charity runs have taught her exactly how to handle these situations. Martinez steps out first, flashlight already in hand, his partner trailing behind with a smirk that says he's expecting entertainment. They approach from both sides, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness and landing directly on Rebecca's face. Evening, ma'am. Martinez's tone carries that particular mix of authority and condescension that some officers perfect over years of traffic stops. License and registration. Good evening, officers. Rebecca's voice is steady, respectful. She reaches slowly for her glove compartment, movements deliberate and non-threatening. Is there a problem? Coleman snorts from the passenger side. Lady, look at this car. The problem's pretty obvious. The Honda's engine ticks and pops as it cools, each sound seeming to amuse the officers more. Martinez examines her documents with theatrical slowness, his flashlight beam dancing across the pages. Rebecca Stone, He reads aloud, making her name sound like an accusation. Says here you live on Oak Street. That's clear across town. What brings you to this neighborhood so late at night? I was visiting friends, Rebecca replies simply. It's not technically a lie. She considers the families she helps to be friends, even if they don't know her name. Friends. Coleman laughs outright. Lady, the cheapest house in this zip code costs more than most people make in 5 years. What kind of friends are we talking about here? Martinez circles the car slowly, his flashlight highlighting every dent, every scratch, every sign of wear. This vehicle's in pretty rough shape. When's the last time you had it inspected? Rebecca knows the car passed inspection just 3 months ago, but she also knows that's not really what this is about. It was inspected recently, officer. All the paperwork should be in the glove compartment. Should be. Martinez raises an eyebrow. That's not really an answer, is it? Coleman, take a look at these tires. You seeing what I'm seeing? Coleman crouches down, putting on a show of examining the perfectly legal tires. Tread looks pretty worn to me, Tony. Might be a safety hazard. They're fishing now, looking for any excuse to write citations. Rebecca sits quietly, hands still on the wheel, watching this performance play out. She's been through variations of this scene dozens of times over the years. The assumptions, the judgment, the immediate conclusion that she doesn't belong. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, Martinez announces, his voice carrying new authority. We need to conduct a safety inspection. Rebecca complies without argument, standing beside her car as the officers begin their theatrical examination. Coleman kicks at one of the tires. Martinez checks the lights with exaggerated thoroughness, both men finding problems that don't actually exist. This rear light's looking pretty dim, Coleman calls out. Could be dangerous for other drivers. And this bumper, Martinez adds, giving the duct tape a dismissive flick. Definitely not road safe. This is what happens when people try to drive cars they can't afford to maintain. The comment lands exactly as intended. Rebecca feels the familiar sting of assumptions based on appearances, but she keeps her expression neutral. Getting angry won't help anyone, least of all the families who depend on her monthly visits. Officers, I understand you're doing your job, but the car is legally registered and insured. If you'd like to write me a citation for something specific, I'll accept it and be on my way. Martinez stops his inspection and stares at her. Accept it? Lady, I don't think you understand the situation here. You're driving a potential hazard through one of the nicest neighborhoods in the city at nearly midnight. That raises questions. What kind of questions? Rebecca asks evenly. Coleman rejoins his partner, both men now standing close enough to make their presence intimidating. Questions like whether you're casing houses. Questions like whether this whole visiting friend story is cover for something else. Questions like whether someone who clearly can't afford basic car maintenance has any legitimate business in Willowbrook Heights, Martinez adds, his voice dropping into accusation territory. Rebecca looks between the two officers, recognizing the trap they're building. No matter what she says, no matter how she responds, they've already decided who she is and why she's here. The truth, that she's worth more than everyone in this neighborhood combined, would sound ridiculous coming from someone standing next to a car held together with duct tape. I haven't broken any laws, she says quietly. I was driving safely. I have valid registration and insurance, and I was heading home. Were you? Martinez pulls out his citation book with a flourish. Because your story's not really adding up. First you're visiting friends, now you're heading home. Which is it? I was visiting friends, and now I'm heading home, Rebecca clarifies patiently. One thing followed the other. Coleman laughs. Oh, she's got an answer for everything, doesn't she, Tony? Real smooth talker. Martinez begins writing, his pen scratching aggressively across the citation pad. Well, here's what I think happened. I think you were driving through here looking for opportunities. Maybe checking out which houses look empty, which ones might have packages sitting on porches. And I think this whole friend's story is something you came up with when you got caught. That's not true, Rebecca responds, but her voice lacks any heat. She's learned that defending herself too vigorously only makes these situations worse. Sure it's not. Martinez tears off the first citation with theatrical force. Defective vehicle equipment. Your rear lights definitely not meeting safety standards. He immediately starts writing another one. And let's add failure to maintain lane markings. I noticed you were weaving a bit back there. Rebecca knows she wasn't weaving. She also knows it doesn't matter. Coleman has moved to examine her registration again, holding it up to his flashlight like he's looking for forgeries. You know what's interesting, Tony? This address she gave us. I know that street. It's not exactly the nice part of town, if you know what I mean. I do know what you mean, Martinez replies, finishing the second citation and starting a third. Makes you wonder how someone from that neighborhood gets the idea she belongs over here. The implications hang in the air like smoke. Rebecca stands beside her car, watching these two men tear apart her character based on nothing more than assumptions and prejudice. They see an old car and modest clothes and immediately construct an entire criminal narrative. And one more thing, Martinez says, scribbling on a third citation. Public disturbance. All this late night driving around is disturbing the peace of this neighborhood. 3 citations for violations that don't exist, written by officers who've decided her guilt before asking a single real question. Rebecca takes the papers without protest, knowing that fighting will only make things worse. Have a good night, ma'am, Coleman says with mock politeness. And maybe stick to your own neighborhood from now on. These folks pay good tax money to keep their streets safe. Martinez climbs back into his cruiser, but rolls down the window for one final comment. And get that car fixed before someone gets hurt. People shouldn't have to look at that eyesore. The police cars pull away, leaving Rebecca standing alone under the street lamp, 3 bogus citations in her hand, and the taste of humiliation fresh in her mouth. She looks at the papers, each one a monument to the assumptions people make about worth and belonging. But what Martinez and Coleman don't know, what they can't possibly imagine, is that the woman they just dismissed as a potential criminal actually controls technology worth billions. The woman they mocked for her poverty has the power to change their lives forever. Rebecca folds the citations carefully and places them in her glove compartment. She'll keep them safe. Something tells her she's going to need them later. As she drives away, her beat-up Honda disappearing into the night, she's already thinking about tomorrow. About justice. About consequences. About karma. The next morning arrives crisp and clear, the kind of Tuesday that makes people believe good things are possible. Rebecca Stone sits in her actual car, a modest black sedan she keeps for daytime errands, reviewing quarterly reports at a red light. Her phone buzzes with a text from her assistant about the city council meeting tonight, the one where TechCore Solutions will finalize their $50 million contract with the police department. $50 million to modernize their entire digital infrastructure. New patrol car systems, upgraded databases, state-of-the-art communication networks. It's the kind of contract that can save careers and transform departments. But first, she needs groceries. Rebecca parks outside Millbrook Shopping Center, the same upscale area where she was humiliated 12 hours ago. She's wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater today, nothing fancy, but clean and presentable. The beat-up Honda sits in her garage at home. She figured one encounter with local law enforcement was enough for this week. She's wrong. Officer Tony Martinez spots the Honda from 3 blocks away, that familiar dented bumper catching his attention like a red flag. He nudges his partner, Coleman, who's been unusually quiet all morning. Well, look who's back. Martinez grins, that same predatory smile from last night. Didn't we tell her to stick to her own neighborhood? Coleman perks up, yesterday's entertainment returning. Think she didn't get the message? Oh, she got it. She's just choosing to ignore it. Martinez makes a U-turn, his cruiser cutting across traffic with casual authority. Time for another lesson in respect. But they're looking at the wrong car. Rebecca's Honda is safely parked miles away while she shops for organic vegetables and fair trade coffee. The beat-up car they're following belongs to Maria Santos, a single mother of 3 who cleans offices at night and shops during the day to avoid crowds. Martinez hits his lights, pulling Maria over in the most public spot possible, right in front of the shopping center's main entrance where dozens of people can watch. It's a power move, designed for maximum humiliation. Maria's hands shake as she pulls over. She knows this routine too, but it never gets easier. The officers approach with the same swagger they showed Rebecca, the same assumption of guilt written across their faces. License and registration, Martinez demands, not bothering with pleasantries this time. Maria fumbles through her purse, her English accented but clear. Is there problem, officer? Same problem as last night. Coleman says, recognizing what he thinks is the same woman. You don't learn too quick, do you? Maria looks confused, but hands over her documents. Martinez examines them with exaggerated suspicion, holding them up to the light like he's checking for forgeries. Maria Santos, he reads aloud. You told us your name was Rebecca last night. Want to explain that? I do not understand, Maria replies honestly. This is first time I see you. Coleman laughs harshly. Oh, now she's playing dumb. Tony, she thinks we're stupid. I think you're right. Martinez agrees, his voice rising so the growing crowd of shoppers can hear. Ma'am, lying to a police officer is a serious offense. Last night you told us you were Rebecca Stone. Now you're claiming to be Maria Santos. Which is it? Maria's confusion deepens. She has no idea what they're talking about, but she knows better than to argue with angry police officers. My name is Maria Santos. I have identification. Sure you do. Martinez begins writing citations with aggressive flourish. And I'm sure this identification is completely legitimate. Tell me, Maria, what were you doing in Willowbrook Heights last night around midnight? I was home with my children, Maria answers truthfully. I work nights. I come home at 11. More lies. Coleman shakes his head dramatically. Lady, we pulled you over personally. We wrote you 3 citations. Don't insult our intelligence. A crowd has gathered now, shoppers stopping to watch the spectacle. Maria feels dozens of eyes on her, judging her, assuming she must have done something wrong. This is exactly what Martinez wants, a public lesson in knowing your place. Sir, I think you have wrong person. Maria tries again, her voice smaller now, intimidated by the attention. Wrong person. Martinez's voice carries across the parking lot. Same beat-up car, same attitude, same neighborhood where you don't belong. Lady, the only thing wrong here is your memory. He calls his supervisor, Captain Frank Daniels, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Captain, we've got that vagrant from last night. She's back, using a fake ID this time, claiming she doesn't remember our conversation. Within minutes, Captain Daniels arrives, his patrol car adding to the circus atmosphere. He's a man who's built his career on appearances, on showing the community that he keeps the streets safe from undesirable elements. This is exactly the kind of situation he loves, visible, public, with a clear good guy and bad guy. This the troublemaker? Daniels asks, looking at Maria like she's something unpleasant he stepped in. Same car, same story, different name, Martinez explains. She's trying to play us for fools, Captain. Daniels nods gravely, putting on his best community protector voice. Ma'am, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but this is a respectable neighborhood. These people work hard for what they have, and they deserve to feel safe. I am not playing game, Maria says quietly. I just come to buy groceries. Groceries? Coleman scoffs. In a neighborhood where the average house costs $2 million? What kind of groceries are we talking about here? The crowd murmurs approval. Finally, someone's dealing with the obvious problem. Maria feels the weight of their judgment, the assumption that she must be up to something criminal because she doesn't look like she belongs. Daniels takes charge, his voice carrying the authority of 20 years on the force. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sit right here on this curb while we write you proper citations for harassment, public disturbance, and whatever other violations we find. And then you're going to take your business somewhere more appropriate. Sit on the curb? Maria looks around at all the people watching, her face burning with shame. You heard the captain, Martinez says, enjoying every second. Right here, hands visible, while we do our job. Maria has no choice. She sits on the concrete curb in front of dozens of strangers while 3 police officers make a show of writing citation after citation. Each piece of paper represents money she doesn't have, time she can't afford to spend in court, consequences that will follow her for months. The officers take their time, drawing out the humiliation. They examine her car with exaggerated thoroughness, finding fault with everything from the tire pressure to the color of her turn signals. Daniels even calls for a second unit, making sure the scene has maximum visibility. This is what happens, Daniels announces to the gathered crowd, when people don't respect community standards. We keep our neighborhoods safe by addressing problems before they become bigger problems. The crowd nods approvingly. Several people take pictures with their phones, capturing Maria's humiliation for social media. She sits there for 2 full hours, watching her dignity evaporate under the hot sun while police officers treat her like a criminal for the crime of existing in the wrong place. Finally, They hand her a stack of citations thick enough to choke a horse. Expired registration that isn't expired. Defective equipment that works perfectly. Disturbing the peace by shopping for groceries. Each citation a monument to assumptions and prejudice. Next time, think twice before coming back here, Daniels says as they prepare to leave. These people pay good tax money to keep their streets clean. The officers drive away, satisfied with their public demonstration of authority. The crowd disperses, confident that justice has been served. Maria sits in her car, looking at over $4,000 in fines for violations that don't exist, wondering how she'll explain this to her children. But there's something the officers don't know, something that would make them reconsider their definition of justice if they had any imagination at all. The woman they humiliated last night, the real Rebecca Stone, wasn't just some random person to mock and dismiss. She's the CEO of TechCore Solutions, the company that's about to hand the police department the biggest contract in their history. And in 6 hours, she'll be sitting across from city officials, deciding whether $50 million goes to this department or somewhere else entirely. Captain Daniels thinks he just showed the community how to maintain order. What he actually did was destroy his own career, his officers' futures, and his department's financial salvation. All because he couldn't imagine that worth might come in packages that don't look like what he expects. The Karma bus is warming up its engine, and it's about to make some very important stops. The Riverside City Council chambers buzz with anticipation at 7 p.m. sharp. Mayor Patricia Rodriguez takes her seat at the head of the long mahogany table, flanked by 6 council members who've been waiting months for this moment. Tonight's agenda has only one item that really matters: the final signing of the police modernization contract that will transform their department from outdated to cutting-edge. $50 million. The largest municipal contract in the city's history. Captain Frank Daniels sits in the front row, his dress uniform pressed to perfection, chest puffed out like a peacock. This contract represents everything he's worked toward: new equipment, expanded budgets, and most importantly, the kind of departmental prestige that turns captains into chiefs. He spent the afternoon bragging to his officers about how his leadership secured this deal. Tonight, we make history, he whispered to Martinez and Coleman before they headed to their evening shift. This contract proves that real police work gets results. Mayor Rodriguez calls the meeting to order, her voice carrying the weight of ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight to finalize our partnership with TechCore Solutions, a partnership that will bring our police department into the 21st century. The council members nod approvingly. They've seen the presentation slides, read the technical specifications, marveled at the possibilities. Patrol cars with real-time crime mapping, databases that can cross-reference suspects in seconds, communication systems that would make the FBI jealous. It's the kind of upgrade that wins elections. Our police department has worked tirelessly to secure this opportunity, Rodriguez continues, gesturing toward Captain Daniels. Captain Daniels, would you like to say a few words before we bring in the TechCore representatives? Daniels stands, clearing his throat importantly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This contract represents our commitment to keeping Riverside safe through modern, professional policing. Our officers work every day to maintain community standards, and this technology will help us serve even better. Community standards. Professional policing. The words taste like victory in his mouth, especially after this afternoon's successful demonstration of authority at the shopping center. Nothing says professional law enforcement like putting troublemakers in their place. Now, Mayor Rodriguez announces, consulting her notes, please welcome Rebecca Stone, Chief Executive Officer of TechCore Solutions. The chamber doors open, and Rebecca enters wearing a tailored navy suit that whispers rather than shouts expensive. Her hair is professionally styled, her makeup subtle but perfect, her presence commanding in the way that only true power can achieve. She carries a leather portfolio and moves with the quiet confidence of someone who's walked into boardrooms and emerged victorious more times than she can count. Captain Daniels glances up from his phone, expects to see some generic tech executive, and freezes. His blood turns to ice water in his veins. His carefully pressed uniform suddenly feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The woman walking toward the podium is the same woman he spent 2 hours humiliating on a curb this afternoon. The same woman his officers mocked and dismissed last night. The same woman they treated like a criminal for the crime of existing in the wrong neighborhood. Rebecca takes her place at the podium, her eyes scanning the room with professional composure. When her gaze lands on Captain Daniels, she doesn't react, doesn't acknowledge him, doesn't give any indication that she remembers their previous encounters. But Daniels knows. He sees the recognition in her eyes, the quiet calculation behind her calm expression. He's dead. His career, his reputation, his future, all of it evaporated in the space of a heartbeat. "Good evening," Rebecca begins, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's sound system. "I want to thank Mayor Rodriguez and the City Council for inviting TechCore Solutions to be part of Riverside's future." Daniels wants to run, wants to disappear, wants to wake up from what has to be the worst nightmare of his professional life. Instead, he sits frozen, watching his world collapse in real time. Over the past 6 months, we've worked closely with city officials to design a comprehensive technology package that will serve this community for decades to come, Rebecca continues. However, recent events have given me pause about whether TechCore and the Riverside Police Department share the same values. The council members exchange confused glances. This isn't the script they expected. Where's the celebratory signing, the handshakes, the photo opportunities? Mayor Rodriguez leans forward. "Ms. Stone, is there a problem with the contract terms? I thought everything was finalized." Rebecca opens her portfolio, removing a small stack of papers. "The contract terms are fine, Madam Mayor. My concern is with the character of the department we'd be working with." She holds up 3 pieces of paper, each one crumpled from being hastily written but carefully preserved. "Last night, I was pulled over by Officers Martinez and Coleman while returning from volunteer work in the community. Despite breaking no laws, despite having valid registration and insurance, despite being completely cooperative, I was issued 3 citations for violations that don't exist." The chamber erupts in murmurs. Council members lean toward each other, whispering questions and concerns. Captain Daniels feels sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "Furthermore," Rebecca continues, her voice never rising but somehow commanding absolute attention, "this afternoon, those same officers, along with Captain Daniels, pulled over what they believed was the same vehicle. They spent 2 hours publicly humiliating an innocent woman, forcing her to sit on a curb while they wrote over $4,000 in fraudulent citations." She places the papers on the podium, their presence somehow more damning than any accusation. These officers didn't make mistakes. They didn't act in good faith. They systematically abused their authority because they decided, based purely on appearances, that certain people don't belong in certain neighborhoods. Mayor Rodriguez's face has gone pale. This isn't just a business deal anymore. This is a public relations catastrophe waiting to explode across every news outlet in the state. "Ms. Stone," she says carefully, "these are serious allegations. Are you certain about what you're describing?" Rebecca reaches into her portfolio again, this time removing a digital tablet. "I'm certain because I have evidence. You see, my car was equipped with a dashboard camera system that I use for security purposes. Would you like to see what professional policing looks like in Riverside?" Captain Daniels makes a strangled sound that might have been a protest or a plea for mercy. Every person in the chamber turns to look at him, and what they see isn't the confident leader who walked in tonight. They see a man who's realized he's been caught red-handed in the worst possible way. "I don't think that's necessary," Mayor Rodriguez says quickly, damage control instincts kicking in. "Ms. Stone, on behalf of the city, I want to apologize for any unprofessional conduct you experienced. I'm sure we can resolve this situation and move forward with the contract." Rebecca shakes her head slowly. "Madam Mayor, this isn't about money or contracts. This is about values. TechCore Solutions works with law enforcement agencies across the country, and we've learned that technology in the wrong hands becomes a tool of oppression rather than protection." She gestures toward Captain Daniels, who looks like he wants to melt into his chair. "A police department that allows officers to fabricate citations, that encourages public humiliation as crowd control, that operates on assumptions and prejudice rather than evidence and justice, that's not a department we can partner with." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. $50 million, walking out the door. Modernization plans, canceled. Political careers, suddenly in jeopardy. Councilman Robert Hayes, who's been silent until now, finds his voice. Miss Stone, surely we can address these personnel issues while moving forward with the technology upgrade. The contract benefits the entire community. Rebecca considers this, her expression thoughtful. Mr. Hayes, let me ask you something. If I told you that your department's communication systems, patrol car computers, and criminal databases would be managed by the same company that built those systems, would that concern you? Hayes nods slowly, not sure where this is heading. TechCore Solutions didn't just bid on this contract, Rebecca explains. We designed every system you'd be using. Every database query, every GPS location, every arrest record would flow through our servers. We'd have access to everything. The chamber falls completely silent as the implications sink in. Now imagine, Rebecca continues, that the CEO of that company was someone your officers had repeatedly harassed, humiliated, and falsely cited. Someone who'd experienced firsthand how your department treats people it considers undesirable. Would you trust that company with your most sensitive data? The question hangs in the air like smoke from a forest fire. Captain Daniels realizes with growing horror that his actions haven't just cost him his job. They've created a security nightmare that will haunt the department for years. Mayor Rodriguez tries one more time. Ms. Stone, what would it take to salvage this partnership? Disciplinary action? Retraining? Policy changes? Rebecca closes her portfolio with quiet finality. Madam Mayor, some violations of trust can't be repaired with policy memos. When officers abuse their authority, when supervisors encourage that abuse, when an entire department operates on the assumption that respect is something you only give to people who look like they deserve it, that's not a training problem. That's a culture problem. She stands, preparing to leave. TechCore Solutions is withdrawing our bid effective immediately. We'll be recommending that our partner companies do the same. Riverside will need to find another path to modernization. Captain Daniels finally finds his voice, standing up despite every instinct telling him to remain invisible. Miss Stone, please. My officers made mistakes, but they're good cops. This contract represents jobs, careers, the future of our department. Rebecca turns to face him fully for the first time since entering the chamber. When she speaks, her voice carries the weight of someone who's been underestimated one too many times. Captain Daniels, your officers didn't make mistakes. They made choices. They chose to assume I was a criminal based on my appearance. They chose to write fraudulent citations rather than admit they were wrong. They chose to humiliate an innocent woman for 2 hours because it made them feel powerful. She steps closer, her presence somehow filling the entire room. You chose to encourage that behavior. You chose to turn law enforcement into a show of dominance rather than service. You chose to teach your officers that some people matter less than others. The captain's face crumbles as he realizes the full scope of what he's lost. Not just the contract, not just the money, but the respect of his community, the trust of his officers, the foundation of everything he's worked to build. Those choices have consequences, Rebecca continues. The consequence is that your department will continue operating with outdated equipment, limited resources, and a reputation for bias that will follow you long after tonight. She turns back to the council, her expression softening slightly. However, the people of Riverside deserve better than to suffer for their leaders' failures. TechCore will be donating $5 million to establish a civilian oversight board, a police accountability program, and community outreach initiatives. Real change requires more than new computers. The chamber erupts in surprised murmurs. Even in victory, even in justified anger, Rebecca Stone is thinking about solutions rather than revenge. Mayor Rodriguez grasps at this lifeline. Ms. Stone, that's incredibly generous. Perhaps we could discuss restructuring the department, bringing in new leadership, creating the kind of culture that could support a future partnership. Rebecca pauses at the chamber doors, considering. Perhaps, Madam Mayor. But first, your community needs to decide what kind of police department it wants. One that serves everyone equally, or one that protects some people from others. She leaves without another word, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Behind her, she leaves chaos, recrimination, and the smoking ruins of several careers. Captain Daniels remains standing for a long moment, staring at the doors through which $50 million just walked away. Martinez and Coleman, monitoring police radio from their patrol car, hear the news within minutes. Their supervisor's voice, shaky and defeated, calling for immediate backup at the city council meeting. Within 24 hours, the story spreads through law enforcement circles like wildfire. The captain who lost the biggest contract in department history because he couldn't treat people with basic dignity. The officers who wrote fake tickets and cost their colleagues millions in funding. The billionaire CEO who chose principle over profit. Captain Daniels finds himself demoted to patrol duty within a week, his pension reduced, his reputation in tatters. Officers Martinez and Coleman face internal affairs investigations that end their careers before they're 35. The fraudulent citations they wrote become evidence in a federal civil rights investigation that will dog the department for years. But the real karma comes 6 months later, when all three men find themselves working security and service jobs in a city where everyone knows their story. Daniels checks IDs at a shopping mall, the same mall where Rebecca sometimes shops. Martinez directs traffic in parking lots, including the lot at TechCore Solutions headquarters. Coleman delivers food to office buildings, including several owned by Rebecca's company. Every day, they're reminded that respect isn't something you earn through authority or intimidation. It's something you give freely, expecting nothing in return except the kind of society where everyone can shop for groceries, visit friends, or drive through any neighborhood without fear of being judged by their appearance. Rebecca still drives her beat-up Honda sometimes, usually late at night, when she's delivering care packages to families who need them. But now she's not alone. The civilian oversight board she funded has created a network of community volunteers who join her on these runs, people from all walks of life who believe that worth isn't measured by what you drive or where you live. The Honda's dents and duct tape have become symbols of something larger. The idea that you can't judge people's value by their surface, that assumptions are dangerous, and that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who looks like they have the least power at all. 3 former police officers learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Their careers, their reputations, and their futures, all sacrificed on the altar of their own prejudice and arrogance. Sometimes karma doesn't come like thunder. Sometimes it comes like a billionaire in a beat-up car, driving quietly through the night, carrying the power to change everything.